Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. If you love books, if you love reading, and maybe you want to stay encouraged in the face of life storms and issues, then you're definitely logged into the right channel. You are home. So I'm excited about the book that we're going to be looking into today, that we're going to be reading and sharing on. The book is called He's Not That Into You. This book was turned into a movie. It was written by Behrendt and Tuccilo. So this is an interesting book. Now, there are two reasons why I'm choosing this book. It was written by a guy who's got so much respect for women. Of course, it was also written by a female as well. They co-authored, but most of the content that's in there is from the perspective of the guy. Now, these are issues that most of the time we're not going out to our female leaders, we're not going out to our pastors as Christian women and discussing the situation that we're in the raw situation that you're in. Most of the time you're going to your friends and your colleagues and you're discussing about these things, and most of the time you don't get the right answers, or you don't get the answers that you're looking for. And then at the same time, also my number two reason is that this guy is a guy who was passionate about women, wanting to understand why women are doing what they're doing, and he was surrounded by women who were successful, women that were empowered, but in a way they didn't quite understand men. And so he set out to just bring out all these issues, trying to teach women about what to know and what to look out for when you're looking for the right man. And so, do you understand your value? Because he came across women that sort of didn't quite understand their value, and so they were selling themselves short. So now that's a question I'm posing again to you. Do you know and understand your value? You may have to censor yourself as you're reading the book, but it contains a lot of truth about what women are going through, what women have gone through. And as you're reading, you can actually relate to it and see, this is something that I've gone through. Now, I'm not so sure where you are. Maybe you're in a relationship now and you're just asking yourself, is this worth it? Maybe you're considering getting out, or maybe you're just unhappy and you want something different, or you've been experiencing the same kind of guy. So this book really addresses those issues. And so what I would say to somebody who's really saying, I need to get out of this, I would say, two reasons that come into my mind about why you need to get out now. Two things that you never should compromise on. That's emotional or physical abuse. Now, research has proved time and time again that if you're in a relationship and it's an abusive relationship, most of the time, people don't change. I believe that people change when they want to change, when they're willing to change, and also divine intervention. People can change when their lives have been changed spiritually. But that's something, if you're in a relationship, that's something you're probably just gambling with. And time again, we know the truth. The house always wins. But in the confines of marriage, there is hope, because you are in a marriage where you've got a covenant, you've got a relationship where there is a covenant, and in that you have to stay in the confines of what does God say? What does God say about marriage? Now, growing up for me, we didn't have a lot of information, not from the church that I was going to, not from even my older cousins, because when I grew up, it was a different time where even my older cousins didn't experience what we were now experiencing. And so now we had even the good guys, the guys that you'd consider to be Christian guys. These were guys that also wanted the same thing. They wanted sex. Something that if you are out there talking to your parents and older people, they will tell you that any guy who wants to sleep with you is not a good guy. But you'd meet a guy who is a good guy, but at the same time, he's sort of wanting the same thing that the guys out there want. So we were short on advice. We had to rely on our friends who pretty much didn't even really have the right information, and our older cousins. We were a bit informed, but at the same time, we were strapped when it comes to what we're supposed to be talking about. Now, back to our parents. They gave us what they knew, because a lot of them hadn't had that experience. They never experienced their parents speaking to them about what goes on in dating, what happens when you're dating somebody. And with the ladies or the girls, the young girls that I speak to whenever I have workshops and speaking engagements, they are also just as puzzled. They can't quite sit down with their parents. Some do, but most of them can sit down with the parents and really ask, and they can be as raw about what is involved in a relationship, what to look for, in a relationship, or because they don't really have that information, so they can't give you what they don't have. So we're just left to rely on our friends, our older cousins, and most of the time the soapies, which is what our young girls have to just also rely on. Sometimes they have to go to the soaps and the series, and now there's a lot of reality TV, which doesn't quite give the right information. But I would encourage anybody who wants to learn to just say, go to your mentors, go to your older group leaders who are able to also direct you and tell you the right things and tell you how to navigate the dating arena. And so for our parents, I think when I was growing up, we're worlds apart, totally worlds apart. And so at the end of the day, we just understood that they were coming from a place where they loved us. They wanted us to just walk in the right path. Like, as a Christian person, you have to be, as you mature, you understand the importance of relying on the Holy Spirit, where it leads you, it gives you discernment to say, is this right for you or it's not? Is this person right for you and it's not? Now, back to the book. I'm not so sure if you read the book, or if you watch the movie. But it really has a lot of things that I thought the letters, let me just say a letter, because they'll say, Dear Greg, and then they'll talk about what they were going through. So, Dear Greg, I had a boyfriend 10 years ago. I bumped into him on the street recently after not having seen him for many years. And we started dating again, even though it is unclear if that's exactly what's going on. You won't make a pass at me, but Greg, we're going to salsa dancing, we're going bar hopping, we're staying out late, talking and dancing and laughing and flirting. He keeps telling me how great I look and how great it is to see me. One night even told me he loved me and hoped I'd always be in his life. My friends all say he's just afraid to get hit again and I should stick this one out. He's a great guy. Doesn't he seem really into me? But he's scared. Salsa dancing, Greg. Till 4 in the morning. Salsa dancing. Please advise. This was one of the letters that Greg received. And so it sounds very familiar, because a lot of the times the guys are sending mixed signals and you're not quite sure, is this guy into me or not? It's something that also I struggled with. But here's the thing. The truth of the matter is that the truth really never changes. Anyone who's into you, no matter what he has been through, you make it clear that he's into you. And I know guys are not very expressive. I'm sure a lot of you know that. But at the same time, you don't want to be filling in the gaps, because you could fill in the gaps and then get disappointed, because that's not exactly what's going on. When you meet someone that he really wants to be with, he's just going to hope and just sort of like start ignoring. And then you're still going to be thinking it's mixed signals. Maybe he's still giving me those mixed signals. I feel like if you're in a situation with these mixed signals, just sit down and then ask, what's going on? A lot of women and a lot of girls don't know how to approach a situation. They don't know how to confront a situation. They want to stay in the confines of, let me just assume. But being in the confines of assuming things is that you end up assuming the wrong things. And then at the end of the day, you will lose. Now, this is another letter that I was written to Greg. I live with my boyfriend who doesn't like to talk on the phone. So when he goes out of town, he won't call me, even to let me know that he got there safely. He just won't call me. He goes out of town fairly often for business. We fight about it all the time. Sometimes I think that our styles are just different, and I'm going to have to learn how to compromise. But then I think that if you're into someone, you would want to call them and talk to them while you're away from them, which is the truth. If you really love something, because love is something that prompts you to do things, right? If you care for someone, you just want to tell them, you just want to let them know. If he's out there and he's not thinking of calling you, that really has to send something to you, because if you're away from someone you really care about, you want to know what they're doing, you want to know how they are, and you want them to know how you're doing. And this was Greg's response. Unless you're dating a spy, this behavior is unwarranted. I travel for a living and find that I call my lady 3 or 4 times a day. However, sometimes because of time differences, we don't connect. But I will, and she will always leave a message. That's what happens when you care about someone. I have to say, as a guy, I never liked being told to call, which my wife never really does. And that's why I call her as often as I do. We have no rules about calling, but we like and love each other to the degree that we want to talk daily, if not hourly, because you care about someone. Listen, I do think space in a relationship is good. Missing someone is a sign of a healthy relationship. Not respecting your need to have some form of connection with him while he's away is not. Regardless of his dislike for talking on the phone, he should respect and care for you enough to call you, if only because he knows that it will make you happy. I mean, if it's not something that he's into, I mean, I see that with my husband as well. There's things that he really knows about me, things I know about him, where I know that he'll definitely appreciate this, even though it's, for me, you know, it's something that I'm very reluctant about, or I don't really like doing certain things that I know he really likes, but I go out of my way to do it for him because I know that he likes it. And that's what he's saying, that at the end of the day, he understands that it will make you happy if he calls you. Now, there's a lot of ladies out there who make excuses for a guy and say, oh no, maybe he doesn't have time, maybe he's caught up in a meeting, maybe. But at the end of the day, he will have time, enough time to just text you and say, if he's getting time to just maybe chat with his buddies, or getting time in between whatever sessions he has, even if he's traveled for like a business meeting or something, he's obviously getting time in between those sessions. And if I'm into someone, I just want to squeeze in that time and say, hey, how are you? I'm just thinking about you, because he knows it will make you happy, even if it's not something he is so into, because some guys are not very into these small things, you know, but at the same time, he understands that it makes you happy, and he should be in a place where he also does it so that you're happy. Okay, so now here's another one. Dear Greg, on New Year's Day, a guy I did a few dates with, who I was very excited about, was late for a date. I called him, and he very apologetically told me he had to go out of town to take care of his mother. He totally forgot to call me. I'm so confused. His mother is really sick, but it wasn't a desperate emergency. He just had to drive out to Connecticut. Craig, I really like this guy. Please say a sick mother is a good enough excuse to forgive him and believe you can still be into me. It sounds to me like someone who's desperate enough to cling onto an excuse. So this is Greg's response. Dear Nyoye, yes, here's a bad excuse in sick mother's clothing. Because still, no matter what he's telling you is, you're not on my mind. Because if you were, he would have called you expressing great regret at not being able to spend the day with you. Let's say there was an emergency, right? And then you were supposed to meet someone that you really care about, someone you're excited about. Because when you've just met someone you're excited about, anyone, guy or girl, you'll be excited about it. You definitely want to say, oh my, I have to cancel. And then you take your phone and then you call them or you text them and you let them know they're not gonna be able to make it, right? Especially if it's that important, it's your mother, right? So he says, if you had the time to pick and travel, he had the time to call you and he chose not to. You call it forget. I call it chose not to. When you like someone, they don't just slip your mind. Isn't that true? Especially on New Year's Day. I know it may seem like he had a good excuse, but sadly, I think your New Year started off with a big glass of he's just not that into you. Now, next year you go and find someone who won't forget to call you. Definitely, ladies, let's not cling to people who forget about us. So let me just tell you a bit about how this book came about. Gary was working on a project in New York. And so they just started talking about women, men, dating, things like that. And what he discovered was a lot of these women, as he was commenting on their situations, he discovered that a lot of these women were just clinging on to small promises. They were desperate enough to hang on to the little things that were happening, that men were telling them, or the little signals that were coming onto them. And so a lot of them were also women who didn't quite understand the difference between someone caring for you and someone loving you. And the thing about men is when you go forward, at the end of the day, they get confused, all right? Here's the truth, ladies, the truth that will never change, right? Human beings will never grow horns, right? And so men love to hunt. They place value on the things that they hunt, things that they have to chase. And there's value in that. And I think for us women, we love being chased. We love being hunted, right? How you feel about it when a guy is coming onto you and you're also just taking time to find out if he's the right one. When he goes out of his way to just show you that he cares for you and he truly adores you, it's really such a nice thing. It's like you just kind of get mellow when it comes to things like that. I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to guys, because they get excited about the chase, and it's those things that gives them excitement, and that excitement and that chase doesn't go away from their mind. It's when they do decide that they want to settle with you, they want to marry you, then at the end of the day, everything that they're doing, they're fighting for what they fought to get. It's like they're just trying to please you, trying to make sure that they can show you that they can provide for you and be there for you, and that doesn't go away. No matter what happens, it doesn't go away. It'll always be the thing that will look back to and say, it took me time. It's like, I think there's that propensity to want to please, to want to do something to make somebody excited, somebody happy, their partner. They are their partner and somebody that they truly love and care about. There's that respect that's attached to it as well. So women, we have to be clear and we have to see the difference between love and deception. It's not so hard to see love. It's not so hard because the Bible tells us in detail all the characteristics of love. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love that is not self-seeking. It doesn't try to please itself. There's so many things that we see. You can't really separate. It's almost the same, because love is almost the same qualities. If it's the love from a mother, love from a friend, the qualities are almost the same. Obviously, for a relationship and marriage, it goes further. But at the end of the day, they're almost the same, because when somebody really loves you, you don't question it. It's there and you see it. Now, I know a lot of women who sit down and try to comfort themselves with all these lies, things I used to chat about with my friends, and it all seemed like it was the truth at the time. Statements like, oh, men cheat, oh, good men are gone, so you have to try and see what you can work with what you have in that moment, and then men are like children, you have to kind of hold their hand. I mean, to some extent, it is true a little bit, but, not enough for you to hold his hand and say, marry me, or push him into commitment. Because if you're pushing him into commitment, you're working to get him to get you. At the end of the day, the work will never stop. Now, other people will tell you, oh no, I put in the work so hard and it worked out for me. What we see out there and what people will tell you is not exactly what it is. People will not tell you the full truth of how they did it or what exactly happened. And sometimes what we see is not exactly what is. We know the situation that our friend had, and so we're thinking, oh, she made an effort, or she did this. And I see her all the time, she looks like she's happy. And thank God for social media, because, to some extent, it really shows us the facade that's out there. But at the same time, if you choose not to see it, you might not see it. You might actually miss it, because you see all the perfection of that you're shown out there on social media, and you assume that people are happy, and therefore, if it worked out for them this way, it's gonna work out for me. That's not the truth. It doesn't always work out like that. And what we see is probably so far from reality. Now, I like in the book how he puts these knots together. Like after every chapter, he just goes and they kind of give you the small nuggets and the truths of what they've been speaking about. So this is what he says: what you should have learned in this chapter. After every chapter, he does the same. If he's not calling you, it's because you're not on his mind. If he creates expectations for you and then doesn't follow through on little things, he will do the same for big things. Be aware of this and realize that he's okay with disappointing you. If you are okay with him not calling you enough, him not being there for you when you want him there, him not showing up on your birthday or giving you presents and things like that, or maybe making up excuses and you quickly just accept it. You're saying it's okay for you to mistreat me. It's okay for you to undervalue me. It's okay for you to do these things. And then at the end of the day, I can still just be there for you. Don't be with someone who doesn't do what they say they're going to do. If he's choosing not to make a simple effort that would put you at ease and bring harmony to a recurring fight, then he doesn't respect your feelings and needs. Busy is another word for not caring. You deserve a phone call, and he should call you. Now, God has given each one of us a partner, someone who is tied to our destiny, someone who's tied to who we are, someone who's tied to the things we don't even really know about ourselves, because God knows us. He knows the intricacies of things that bother you, things that have hurt you, things like that. And he's going to give you a man who's truly going to be a helper, who's going to nurse you back to health, who's going to help you get back to who he created you to be for today, for tomorrow, and for your destiny. Now, wouldn't you want to be tied to the person that is right for you in the way that you don't even really know? And so when I was looking for a partner, this is what I did. I got rid of all the distractions. I got rid of all the noises, and I decided that I was going to make my relationship right with God. And having done that, eventually I started asking, did I miss something, God? Who is out there for me? And in that space, I wasn't thinking of anybody really. And then God started speaking to me. And then that led me to connecting to the guy that I had dated just after college. And he's the man who has married me. And he's the man that I'm with now, 7 years in marriage. And so I have so much to be grateful for. But it goes back to that moment of total submission to say, Father, what's out there for me? Father, who is out there for me? And waiting, because waiting is the hardest part. A lot of us are looking at our friends, our cousins, things like that, people around us, the environment, and we're saying time is gone, but time doesn't belong to you. Time is relative because it depends on what's happening for you today and what's your future like. And only God knows how far you're going. And so don't base your time on what's happening to other people. Base your time on what God has in store for you. And so I just wanted to say that when it comes to finding the right partner, you need to just go back and say, God, I submit, I give back. And don't be asking God whilst you're in a shady relationship, whilst you're busy submitting to somebody else and you're busy just doing what you're doing, being busy, you know what I mean? But you have to go back in total silence and say, God, I give up all of that, all of the craziness and the nonsense that I've been chasing, and I want you. It starts with you saying, God, I want you, what you have for me today and what you have for me tomorrow. I want all of that. And then from there, God will give you exactly what you deserve. He'll give you your own. Now you can go and look for the book wherever books are sold. I'm just going to include also a link of other places that you could find this book, but feel free to suggest other books that you've read on relationships and how they've impacted your life and how they have changed your life. And then so like I mentioned in my previous video, you can suggest a book that you want us to read. You can suggest a book. It doesn't have to be about relationships. It can be a self-improvement book, a Christian book, whatever it is, any book that has impacted your life, that gave you the right lessons, the right nuggets to just navigate life. And so stay blessed and stay connected to God, stay connected to what He has for your life, because God loves you. He's got good plans for you, and therefore do not rush. Ladies, don't rush into that marriage. Do not rush because you think like time is gone. Time does not belong to you. And if you respect that, time will become your friend. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like, so that next week when we come back and we're looking at another book, you can really know. And please feel free to participate in the comments. Tell me what you think about this book. Tell me what you think about other books, and suggest a book that we can pick and read next time. Thank you.